female-dominated jobs, meaning jobs that have traditionally been mostly made up of women. Examples, nursing and teaching are classified as female-dominated, opposed to male-dominated, which tends to be more technology, truck driving, things like that. The second one that I found, the Paycheck Fairness Act. This was in an effort to reinforce the Equal Pay Act of 1963. Hillary Clinton actually brought this proposal up with another Republican. Her name slips my mind right now. They brought it up, and with this, there's a few clauses in it. One, working with the EEOC to give companies guidelines so that when they're reviewing jobs, they can avoid being biased. And it's kind of like a set of rules and regulations to make sure that women are being treated fairly in these companies, especially large companies where sometimes it's overlooked and women are just kind of shoved under the rug. So it's a problem. The last one that I found, which President Obama signed in as his first bill, is called the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. And it's actually named after a woman from Alabama who worked in an industry that was predominantly male-dominated, and she was a manager there. And as it became time for her to retire, she realized that she was being paid less than her male counterparts. And when she brought it up to court, they denied her claim because she had waited too long. The statute of limitations had passed. And so she wasn't able to correct this wrong, and she just kind of had to accept that, even though the awareness of the issue was brought up later on at her time at the company. So this bill extends the statute of limitations for situations like this. It gives 6 months after each unfair paycheck has been received for someone to bring this claim up, and it restarts every 6 months. So it's more of a process to allow, when people actually realize what's going on, for them to actually get what they deserve and bring the injustice to court and reverse it. Finally, I wanted to think about what needs to be done to abolish the wage gap. It's kind of a big task, and when I decided that's how I wanted to end my thesis, I honestly had no idea how I was going to solve this huge issue that we've had for decades. So it took me a while to think of what really needs to be done, and when I realized what I think should be done, it's very basic. The Women and Work Commission, which was formed in 2004 to help come up with solutions to abolish this wage gap, stated that the educational system needs to be rerouted to encourage girls to seek non-traditional female careers. I think that this is something that does need to be done, because I remember, being younger in class, women always the girls in your class always want to, be nurses or do things that are kind of set in front of them, opposed to branching out and think, oh, okay, well maybe I want to be an executive of a huge company, or they never really think in terms of that, and it starts so young. So that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Overall awareness needs to be raised. Like I was stating, you never see things in the news about this. A lot of people are misinformed. People think that women make less than men because they take time off to raise children. But the truth of the matter is that the wage gap, when calculated, it focuses on men and women who are pretty equal in their hours worked, their level of education, their level of experiences. So there shouldn't be the wage gap. People don't know this. People don't know these facts. Like I was saying before, the media has such a strong impact on how people view and understand information, and how they view and understand gender. And the media should, although it would be very difficult for them to get on this ball, but they should start bringing this awareness to the forefront of our mind. It should be in the news. It should be addressed. People need to know about it so then people can show their knowledge through their actions to help stop this injustice towards women. And then the last thing that obviously is already starting on a very basic level from what I found in my research, there needs to be further legislative and corrective measures. What is being done and what has been done is really great, but there needs to be more force behind it. People need to know about it. There needs to be more motivation to stop this problem. People don't know about it. People aren't acting on it. People don't think it's a big problem compared to our economy, but it is, because it affects millions of people, and it's not fair. So that's kind of the summary of my thesis paper. From all of it, I got that the problem is so embedded into our society. It really needs to be pulled from history as much as we can. It needs to be pulled from the roots and completely cleared aside, because it's a problem that still affects women. It's going to affect the graduating class of 2010. It's a problem, and it needs to be addressed. And so that's why I wrote my thesis. Yes, Mom?
I found that whenever I have demanded things, that I get looked at a lot differently, and it's not a good thing. And for a woman to demand, she's not looked at well after that. So even though that's the way I can get it, it's not a very nice way to get it. And I don't know if that's the best way. What do you think is the best way?
Well, when I say demand to be valued, I don't mean go in screaming and being rude. And when I interviewed Vicki, and she said that, she stated that a lot of the times, the hardest thing for her was being taken seriously. And she said when she did put on that front, I'm a serious person, I'm the leader, you need to listen to me, you need to understand what I'm saying, people would view her in a negative light, like you're saying. But I think that there's ways to go about demanding your recognition and your hard work without being viewed in a negative way. I think it's just the manner of doing it, and I think it also corresponds to the progress of our society. Right now, my views on this is that we really need to fix the problem, and we really need to work harder on it. So alongside with us progressing, it might become easier for you to demand something and not come off horribly.
I think the women should get together as a group and bring it, the awareness that way, versus one person, one-on-one.
And that's what the Women and Commission work group that I was talking about, that's why they formed, was to come up with solutions to abolish the wage gap. But like I said, it's a huge problem that's been around forever, so it can't be fixed overnight.
One last question.
You're really onto something in this issue of demand, or however you want to talk about it. There's a book called Women Don't Ask, and I don't know if you came across that when you were doing your thesis, but women need to be proactive about asking for raises, stepping up when they believe that they deserve a promotion, and just exhibiting that kind of confidence, and it's being proactive versus aggressive. It's being assertive rather than demanding, and creating a culture in the community where you work that's considered the norm. So start with your peer group is going to make it happen.
I hope so.
one little point. It's also very important that you do that. The game when you first start in business is to get your base. So if a woman, for example, accepts for an accounting position a $50,000 base, but a male counterpart had a $55,000 base, it's extremely difficult to close that base. So the fact is, this is a long-term problem. If the class of 2010 doesn't negotiate equally with men at this very moment, it's going to be almost impossible to ever catch up throughout the entire career.
Yeah, that's very true.
And you can't just rely on women to help you fix it, because I was recently negotiating a salary for a man, and the headhunter, who was a woman, said to me, well, since he's a man, you might have to pay him more.
That's really surprising. Wow.
Yeah.
She's accepted also that behavior.
She didn't even realize what she was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that just goes back to what I found throughout my thesis with the stereotypes that have just, there's a general acceptance for it that just kind of everyone just brushes aside like it's okay, and it's not. It's forming problems like these. So it's very true.
Thank you all so much for coming.